Alright guys, welcome to another video from XF Motorsports. Today we have a C63 in the shop and it's here for engine mounts from East Coast Euro. So I'm going to be doing a video on the install, and well, there's also a couple of cool things to show you on this car, the whole body kit, and later on actually this car we might be doing a manual swap on it, putting a 350Z transmission on this. So it's a pretty cool project. Let me first start off by showing you the car, then these engine mounts, and then getting into the install. So this is Shaz, the owner of the C63, and I thought it's better he explains all the body kit and everything for the car. He spent a lot of effort on it, putting white fender flares, rims, the whole splitter at the front. So yeah, tell us about the body kit.
Yeah, so I really like the Black Series, and unfortunately, family-wise, four doors is better. But what I did was I acquired the Black Series aftermarket parts and had the front converted. And the rear was a bit tricky because it's a four-door. Yeah,
let's actually go see the rear because it's even crazier than the front.
I contacted a company in Germany and they made flares for the rear that molded into the door. I wanted to get the Black Series rear bumper, but I don't know, for some reason I like the factory one, this version style better. And I wanted to go as wide as possible, right? So my other cars, I'm running 20 by 15s in the back. So these ones are 20 by 13 and a half.
Super wide, yeah.
And so those flares I got, we ended up extending them 2 more inches.
Yeah, and of course you have some suspension mods on there too, right? Which we will probably get to see better when we lift the car up.
Yeah. So this is like the second set of coilovers I've gone through. The second set now is BC's, I forget the model number, but it's the one with the dampening as well as the, what do you call it, rebound control.
So these are the mounts that we're going to be installing on the car. They're East Coast Euro. They actually make engine mounts for the C63, I believe even for the M113 engines, right?
Right.
It's really cool, nice product though, all billet aluminum machined. You can actually see all the machining marks and stuff on it. Pretty cool looking part.
And they've track tested, and I read all the reviews that them themselves did on the mounts, and there was a lot of positive feedback. So I decided, okay, let me try it out.
Sure, and now it's time to try it out. So we're going to be lifting the car, seeing how much work it takes to put these mounts in. So for installing the mounts, we started off by lifting the car and removing all the under trays. We decided to install the transmission mount first since it was much easier, and for this one the owner decided to change the inserts inside the mount because, well, for these mounts you can actually change the inserts inside them so that you can choose different stiffnesses. So we actually moved to a much stiffer mount than what they came with, and that did not turn out to be such a good idea because later on he did not like the vibrations that this one led to, and we had to change things back. For removing the transmission mount itself, it was also really easy. There's just a couple of bolts you have to undo, and usually you have to support the weight of the transmission using a transmission jack, but since the transmission is light enough anyways, I just put a chisel and pried it up to take the weight off the mount, and that made it easy enough to just remove the old mount and put the new one in place. Here's a look at the transmission mount after it's installed in place, and this was actually really easy. Only 3 bolts underneath that I had to remove and 2 over here. And then I just, I didn't even support the transmission, I just put a chisel in here and I was able to pry the transmission up enough to get the weight off the transmission mount. And yeah, that was just easy enough to put this new one in. But next I have to move to the engine mounts that are going to be a little more difficult than this because the engine mounts in this car sit right over there. So to get those out, I will need to drop this whole thing, the power steering rack. Which means it's a few bolts over here that I need to loosen, and there's an electrical plug over there that I need to take out, and also the shaft coming from the steering column to the steering rack that I need to disconnect. And hopefully then there's going to be enough space to take it out, or at least that's what the instructions say, that after that I should be able to take it out. For removing the engine mount, there's 2 bolts underneath the mount that are holding the mount to the subframe, and then there's 1 bolt over it that is holding it to the bracket that is connected to the engine. After removing the bottom bolts, I had to support the engine to take the weight off the engine mounts, and then I could undo the top 16mm bolt, and that is an extremely difficult bolt to undo because it's really close to the hot exhaust, and Yeah, the place is just really tight. Once the old mount was out, it was the same process putting the new one in, just those 3 bolts, and once they're tightened, the new mount is already in. After that, it was on to the left side, except for this time I did not feel like removing that 16mm bolt on top of the mount, so what I did was I undid the 4 bolts holding the bracket to the engine block, and for this side, luckily all 4 bolts holding the bracket to the engine block were actually accessible, which is why that way it worked out a lot easier than trying to remove that 1 bolt on the top of the mount. Okay, so now both engine mounts are out, and for this one we were able to, we were a little lucky that we did not have to remove this 16mm bolt at the top, because this bolt is extremely difficult to remove when the mounts are mounted in the car. The exhaust is right here and there's literally no space to put a socket on or anything. The only tool that I actually got on it was this actual like a swivel thing. I could actually put it on like this and I was able to turn it. For this side we got a little lucky because we were able to remove these 4 bolts on the bracket for the mount, and this whole thing came off. But the only thing about this one is that you can't put a socket on this one either, because the heat shield is right here and it's literally impossible to put a socket on it. So what I did was that I used a 3/8 spanner, and this one actually fits right on this nut. And if you can get enough force on this end, we did this by putting a breaker bar and just forcing it up, and luckily we were able to loosen it and get this whole thing out, so this made our life a lot easier. Next we just got to move all the stuff over and then put this back in the car. Okay, so everything is done with installing the engine mounts. Now we've put the car down and it's time to start it for the first time on these engine mounts. See if it feels any different than before. Sounds pretty sick. Yeah, there's barely any noticeable vibration like feeling the car. What do you think?
Pretty good actually. I was based on my experience with my other race cars,
yeah,
the vibration is pretty bad, right?
You feel the vibration or no?
No, this one is pretty good.
No vibrations?
No vibrations.
Yeah, I thought there would be no vibrations because, like, well, thinking about it, in that car, the B55 ASL, the engine is actually solid mounted. There's no rubber in that car at all.
Yeah.
And even in that car, there's hardly any vibration. So, yeah, these AMG engines are pretty smooth. Even with really stiff mounts, you don't really feel anything. But it's, I guess now it's probably the time to take it for a bit of a drive and see if you feel any difference with these mounts.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Okay, so 2 days after installing the engine mounts and transmission mount on the C63, the car is back in the shop already. And what did you think about the mounts, Shaz, and why is the car back here again?
Yeah, it wasn't, it's more for us trying things out, right? So
yeah,
when we got it, Amit from East Coast was kind enough to give me the stiffer transmission mounts inserts, and then we tried those.
Yeah, and that didn't turn out to be such a good idea.
Yeah, I think that it's better to just stick with the street stuff. I mean, I have my track car which is solid mounted, right?
Mm-hmm.
That felt a bit more manageable, but it's not terrible. But for someone that's not used to that, they might not like the sensation.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, your oil bottle just fell out. So the other thing was there was a few exhaust rattles when we put the stiffer mounts in. The exhaust started rattling at a few places just because of the extra chassis vibration. Because with stiffer transmission mounts, anything that was loose before is going to be way more noticeable now. So that's why we're going to put the car back on the 2-post lift it up, start up the engine, and then Chaz is going to rev it at a certain RPM, and then I'm going to go underneath and check what's vibrating, and hopefully I can fix that. And that's gonna get rid of some of the noises that came with these mounts. Okay, so after looking underneath the C63 and finding out what was vibrating, one vibration actually was super easy to fix. It was just an O2 sensor that was loose, and I guess it probably would have been loose from before, we just never noticed it, but with the stiffer mounts it probably was more amplified, the noises it was making, so that was super easy. I just tightened the O2 sensor and that noise was gone. The other noise at the back was actually because of the body kit, because this exhaust is hitting the carbon fiber and this makes an awful lot of noise at a certain RPM when the whole thing vibrates. I guess it wasn't too noticeable before, but with the stiffer mounts it's much worse. But what I've done is I've brought these exhaust mounts out. I was still doing a bit of welding in there, just welding some 2 new tubes in there to bring them further out and space them properly, and now they actually look proper, like even on the stock car they're spaced this way. So yeah, I'm gonna do the same on the other side, finish up the welding, and then hopefully the noises and rattles because of these mounts are gonna be gone. The other thing we forgot to talk about in this video was that the C63 might also be coming back for a manual swap, because I told the owner to drive my car and he actually loved it, like driving a Mercedes engine with a manual transmission. So he wants to do the exact same swap on his car, putting a 350Z transmission. And that's actually not the only car coming in for a manual swap. There is also another E55 that a person is sending all the way from the States. So I'm extremely excited about making these billet aluminum adapters for both the M156 and the M113K engines. So now we've fixed all the loose parts of the exhaust, made sure the exhaust is not touching anything, and we've also changed the transmission mount back to the regular one. And believe it or not, the difference is massive. Now the car does not vibrate anymore. Well, the owner's really happy with it. He says the vibrations are completely gone, and of course the tips at the back look amazing now, just like the factory one. But it's surprising, it's really surprising how big of a difference that made, just like preventing the exhaust from touching the chassis, and also moving back to the factory transmission mount. Now I just got to put it on the alignment lift quickly, do a quick alignment on it, because when the steering rack was removed it did not sit back in its proper place, so the steering wheel is not centered anymore, it's a little off center. So we just got to fix that and then the car should be good to go. So doing the alignment turned out to be easy enough, because the steering was only off by like 0.1 of a degree, so I only had to change the toes at the front by a slight bit, and that fixed the alignment. But getting the C63 off the actual alignment rack was the main challenge, because with this whole low body kit it was extremely difficult to put it on and take it off the lift without touching anything. Okay, so after a really long day, now everything on the C63 is finally done. It's driving nice, most of the noises are gone, and Shaz has brought his kids along too to see how the car is doing.
Yeah, so you know, everything, thank you so much for doing all the work, really appreciate it.
No problem.
I've been through so many shops, and you know, it's always good to work with someone that you can connect with and build a relationship. And honestly, I think with your skills, you know, you have a very bright future in this business.
Thank you.
And I'll bring everything to you.
Perfect. What do you think about the car now?
Amazing, mate. It was a bit of a tricky thing to get it on the ramp, but now we know it's all good. Whoever wants to do the engine knows, like, lessons learned, right? Like, if you keep your factory training mount, or just keep the street version of everything, then it's going to be livable, right?
Yeah. So that is going to be everything for this video. The C63 AMG has left the shop, but another E63 AMG has taken its spot. This whole week actually seems like the 63 week, because this is a third car with this engine that is coming in. But this car has a few issues that I still need to look into. It has a check engine light and a few codes. The owner says it's not making its proper power, and also you feel a bit of vibration when you initially start to drive it, but then later on the vibration goes away. So it's I still need to look into this and figure out what the problems are. If it's something interesting enough, I might make a video on it, but if it's something simple, then yeah, I probably won't make a video on it. But either way, there's gonna be quite a bit of content coming up for you guys, because this machine is up and running now. I did have a few problems with the CNC machine initially, like the chip conveyor used to trip the whole machine because it was wired wrong, and also the coolant, it used to blast coolant all over the place, so the flood coolant was pretty much unusable. which is why cutting aluminum is a hassle, because you used to weld the aluminum if you try to cutting it without coolant. But now all that is fixed. The guys were really helpful. The people that sold me this machine, they did provide their proper assistance with everything, and they came, looked into it, fixed everything, and now the machine is running amazing actually. I was cutting these parts. These were the rear wing mounts for the E55 ASL. So the video from this will be coming up really soon. Expected to be up in like, I think 1 or 2 days probably. So yeah, this is going to be everything for now. I will leave a link to the engine mounts in the description below. I will also leave my website in the description below for this shop, XF Motorsports. So if you guys want to bring your cars in, well, you can also leave me an email directly. The email is info@xfmotorsports.com. Yeah, that's going to be everything for now. Thanks for watching. I will see you guys really soon.